If you want your performance to be above average, you need to eat above average. And this starts with avoiding one critical mistake. I can bench 115 kilograms, deadlift 190, all being just 16 years old and weighing 65 kilograms. I've been able to nail advanced calisthenics skills, and I even used to be able to run half a marathon in an hour and 30 minutes. Now the cardio is not so good, but I am improving, and this is all due to one critical factor. And it's also why 90% of athletes are never going to be great and stay at the mediocre level. They reach their plateau and they just can't improve. And this can be in relation to athletes at the gym, calisthenics, cardio-wise, whatever area of sport you're into. The problem is you're too focused on timing your meals, hitting that anabolic window, how many meals you should eat in a day, and how you should time it to best match your run or your lifting. Or you are a bit more advanced and you realize this doesn't really matter and it's more about your macros. So what happens is you focus on tracking your macros based on your goals. Maybe that is low carb, high protein for when you're cutting and just high everything when you're bulking. But while you're counting protein grams and obsessing over carb timing, you're completely neglecting the 30 plus micronutrients that are also crucial in high performance. And this is the mistake that's costing you months of progress, maybe even years, despite perfect macros and perfect timing. Here's what research from 2023 to 24 studies reveals. Hitting your micronutrient goals for the day aren't just nice to have optimizations, giving you that slight boost in performance. Micronutrient deficiencies are literal performance limiters that stop you from reaching your genetic potential, whether that is lifting the biggest load of weight from under your feet, or whether it is cardio-wise. You get the point. Now let's just look at some examples. Iron deficiency, the silent performance killer. Iron is essential for oxygen transport, and when you're deficient, your aerobic capacity drops 15 to 35%. And what's worse is that athletes lose 25 to 40% of their iron stores during 6 weeks of intense training due to increased red blood cell turnover. So applying this to the real world, let's say you could run a sub 4-minute mile. That will now be 4 minutes 30 plus just due to this deficiency. And this is because oxygen being transported to your muscles is compromised. Therefore, no amount of training and tracking your macronutrients will make a difference. So what is the caveat? You feel out of shape despite your perfect macros, so you decide to train even harder without addressing the root cause. Now let's look at magnesium deficiency, the strength and power blocker. Magnesium is a cofactor in over 300 enzymatic reactions, including ATP production for muscle contraction. So looking at this in the gym scenario, every rep requires magnesium-dependent energy production. Therefore, deficiency equals to weaker contractions and earlier fatigue. On the flip side, athletes with optimal magnesium levels show 15 to 20% better power output and recovery rates. So what is the caveat again? You might be blaming bad genetics or training plateau when it's actually nutrient deficiencies that's stopping you from achieving your goals. Now the really important one to look at is zinc. Zinc is crucial for myogenesis, which is basically just muscle cell formation and protein synthesis regulation. In simple words, your gains literally stall if you're not hitting your required amount of zinc per day. And what's interesting is that zinc deficient athletes show impaired muscle protein synthesis even though they are hitting high protein. So this may actually apply to you. I'm sure there's a bunch of you guys who are so locked in at the gym, hitting your protein and all that, but you're just not getting your gains, and this could be because of these micronutrients such as zinc. So therefore, you increase your protein, thinking more is better. it's just not working. However, you're just unable to utilize extra protein due to zinc deficiency. Lastly but not least, B vitamin complex, which if you're deficient in, can be an energy system disruptor. B vitamins, especially B12, B6, and folate, are essential for converting food into usable energy at the cellular level, causing fatigue despite adequate calorie intake. Applying this to endurance athletes, those who are vitamin B deficient show 25% reduced endurance capacity and slower recovery rates. So what is the trap? You think you need more calories, but what you actually need is more nutrient-dense foods. Now, this is so easy to talk about through studies and whatever, but let me attempt to convince you by explaining how these 4 micronutrients and having adequate levels consumed by me helped me achieve 2 of my goals: 115 kg bench press at just 65 kilograms and my calisthenics skill progressions. In relation to my bench, explosive movements depend on efficient energy conversion, and therefore deficiency limits power output, and this is all due to vitamin B. So by me hitting my vitamin B, I was able to put in that power to hit that 115, and perhaps if I didn't, maybe I would have only been able to do 110. Furthermore, as it was a PR, peak force production requires optimal magnesium levels for muscle contraction efficiency. Now, for adequate recovery, which is why I'm able to hit all these PRs, progressing calisthenics while improving my cardio, and this is all due to zinc. Muscle growth after heavy sessions requires zinc for cellular repair and growth signaling. Now let's look at my calisthenics progressions. And this is where things get interesting. Handstand progressions and explosive movements require strong bones and efficient muscle contractions, which is provided by vitamin D and calcium. And interestingly, recent research shows zinc deficiency impairs neuromuscular function, affecting control in calisthenics moves, causing loss of balance, etc. And as we all know, for calisthenics, balance is a crucial factor, such as being able to do the handstands, and this with strength is really, really hard, which all comes down to good coordination. And this, again, if we dive even deeper, may come from micronutrients. Now, zinc isn't the only important micronutrient for recovery. It is also magnesium, and advanced calisthenics skills requires perfect recovery between sessions, because again, when you're learning how to do the planche and all that, I don't know if you've done calisthenics, but it puts a lot of load, for me at least, on my wrists, my elbows, and you have to be very careful not to get injured, and you need to eat properly in order to ensure you don't get injured and you recover between each session. So in conclusion, whether you are cutting or bulking, if you're missing key micronutrients, you're leaving performance on the table. So what is the solution? Yes, if you want, you can track your macronutrients, and if you really want, you can even meal timing. But with the meal timing, think of it as more systematic thinking. It doesn't matter when you hit your protein, or if it is in 1 meal or 4 meals, as long as you hit it in your day, it is fine. It's the same thing with your calories, right? Obviously, it is better to have at least 4 meals for calories and space out your meals, not just have one big one. But usually it doesn't matter when you eat food. And again, with the macronutrients, if you want, just track them, hit your protein, but also focus on your micronutrients. Now, how can you actually do this? I understand that tracking your micronutrients is new, so this is what I propose. Don't track your micronutrients. I don't track my micronutrients or my macronutrients. Don't worry, there is a way that we can ensure we still hit our micronutrient goals for the day. So iron, magnesium, zinc, vitamin D, and calcium. These are just examples I used in this video. Remember that all micronutrients are essential and they all work in ways together. They're not separate. One doesn't have one function. For example, zinc and magnesium both work in recovery. I'm sure other ones work in recovery too. So again, it's systematic thinking. You got to think of everything as interlinked. In order to hit all these 30 plus micronutrients, you need to have a wide variety of foods. For example, leafy greens, nuts, seeds, lean meats, colorful fruits, and veggies. Here are some examples of the micronutrients that I talked about and their specific foods. If you want to just screenshot to remember them, so then you can incorporate them into your own diets. Now, just as a little side note, what you can't get from food, you may decide to supplement. For example, I know a lot of people who like to supplement vitamin D, because vitamin D is quite hard to get if there is no sun, and even magnesium, which helps with sleep. That's another thing too, is micronutrients don't just directly correlate with gym and recovery and stamina and all that, but they indirectly do. For example, magnesium helps you sleeping helps you feel well rested for the gym, and then you can combine that with vitamin D and calcium, which helps again strengthen your bones. So if you have better sleep, your bones get more strengthened. So you know what I mean, it's all interlinked. But as a general rule, with every single meal you eat, have either fruits or veggies. For me, if you guys ever seen my food vlogs and all that, I usually have fruits in the morning, and then lunch, dinner is veggies. I don't care how, I make sure I have veggies and fruits, and I'm pretty sure I've hit all my micronutrients. Now, the important thing is some meats actually have a lot, like I'm telling you, a lot more than fruits and veggies when it comes to micronutrients, such as, pretty sure it's beef liver. Another thing is the yolk of the egg has so much micronutrients and phytonutrients, and salmon too. Salmon has like vitamin D, has omega-3, so crucial too. So just simply 2 steps. 1, have at least 3 different types of meats throughout the day. When I say meats, this includes eggs and fish. So you could have maybe eggs in the morning, beef, and then salmon. Or an alternative could be eggs, black beans as your protein, you could say, because that has a lot of iron. And then you have some chicken, and along with that you have some carbs, and carbs would usually come as grains. Preferably have some quinoa or some lentils as your carbs, because there's more, micronutrients compared to just white rice. And then lastly, step number 2, again, just have some veggies or fruits along with it. My last tip, guys, just do something that works for you. Have a balanced diet and just eat what you like, with, of course, general focus on the variety of foods that you're eating to hit your micronutrients, and then the proportion of your plate of how your meal is distributed between fruits and veggies, carbs and protein, in order so your macronutrient goals are hit. In conclusion, the research shows elite athletes treat micronutrients as seriously as their macronutrients, because they understand that 15 to 35% performance gaps often come from invisible deficiencies and not training errors. So this is how you can develop your own competitive edge. While others chase perfect macros or ideal meal timing, you're optimizing the foundation that actually powers your body systems. This is how you can constantly outperform and reach that above average level, and that is how I've been able to achieve my high numbers just being 16. Now again, if there is one line I want you to remember, it is this: you can't out-train poor nutrition. Above average performance requires above average nutrition. Thank you so much for listening.